call the policy committee of the school board to order, and the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second item on the agenda is the approval of the March 17 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Great. So for policies for first reading tonight, we have policy EEA, Student Transportation Services, with minor changes.
So the changes to this policy are, we were using the word pupils and students in the same policy, so we just made it uniform. All of our policies use the word students, so we changed that. And I think that is the only change in this policy.
Anyone have any questions about that policy? Second, we have policy EEAE, School Bus Safety Program, with minor changes. Is it the same, students and?
This change is, there was a line that said emergency evacuation drills shall be conducted at least 3 times a year. We don't do that. We have not done that in many years, so we took that out of the policy.
Do we conduct any at all?
We do, yes, they do emergency evacuation. They do them, I don't know how frequently. I have a bus meeting with the transportation director on May 9th, but they follow whatever the state guidelines are.
So they're required by the state to do emergency
They are,
drills?
yep.
So should we change this to waiting what the state policy is?
Well, they follow the policy and they're not doing it 3 times a year. So you could say emergency evacuation drill is conducted by the bus company in accordance with state law if you wanted to, or
Could we say once per year?
Mhm.
I know that's what we do, is once a year.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
We could change it to that. Should we vote on it? Or wait
That
till
all
it's
is
written?
required.
Let's wait till it's written. And we have policy EAEC-R, Student Conduct on Buses, Bus Regulations, with minor changes.
So one thing that we took out was under bus regulations, students may ride only the bus to which they've been assigned. There was a line in there, exception will be made only with a note from the principal. We do not do that. Students must ride the bus that they're assigned to. And then there was a reference to a policy that we don't actually have. So under number 4, where it says video cameras are used on school buses in accordance with school board policies, as opposed to citing the letters of the policy, because all the letters are changing. So it's still that it still refers to school board policy. We just didn't cite exactly which ones. And then on number 11 says the law allows and students are expected to sit 3 passengers per seat. That is true on elementary school buses, but it is only 2 passengers per seat on middle and high school buses. So we added that in there. And those are the only changes.
Any questions?
So it used to be pre-COVID that kids going to practices and stuff used to be able to get permission to ride the bus to their practice. Are we no longer allowing that?
I'm not aware of that, and we do not allow that. They can only take the bus to and from their home, and we have policies on that. So if that was happening, it was against other policies that we have that specifically say students may ride the bus to and from their primary residence. We have way too many kids to start shuffling kids on buses, so we do not do that.
Any questions?
Yep, just a quick question. Do we have, I know a lot of our buses are full, especially when we're down a few runs, but do we allow, or are there times where elementary students don't sit 3, where they can fit 2?
Yes,
So it's like when necessary?
when necessary.
Okay.
Any other questions? Since it's first reading, there's no motion required, so. Or do we move it to the board for first reading?
Move it to the board for first reading.
I move we send these three policies to the full board for first reading.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So now policies for second reading are policy BDE, board committees and structure. It's a review with no changes. Policy BDF, advisory committees to the school board, review, no changes. And policy BHC, board staff communications, it's a review and no changes.
For a general question.
Okay.
My general question is, do we ever deal with these policies? Or do we just listen to what Sandy comes in and says and we just adopt them? I mean, we don't look at what our current policy is and then, I mean, we have no discussion about it, basically? Is that,
If
How
someone's
this
got
works?
an issue, we'll bring it up. I mean, does anybody on this committee have any? Yeah, no.
Both the old policy and new policy are in there, and you can see the corrections that have been made, so we can discuss them and bring up any concerns that we have with these. It's what we've always done.
I mean, it's our policy to just review all of our policies on a
And I,
semi-annually basis.
well, it seems like Sandy does the work, we don't do anything, we just sort of say, yeah, okay, right.
Well, I think-
I'm not familiar with that kind of operating procedure.
right, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. McDonald is the one who will go to the New Hampshire school boards, look at what the policy recommendations are. She's the one who has the degree in education and knows
So
the
that means
operations of the school.
This doesn't mean anything up here, and that doesn't mean anything.
I don't appreciate the cynical comments, Sandy.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, give me a break. She's not the only person in the whole state of New Hampshire that
Right.
understands this stuff. I mean,
Right, but,
sometimes common sense gets in the middle of a
and
discussion too.
if I may, that's why you are on this board, to bring up comments and questions and ask her. That's why we're here.
We have brought up policies out of order, if you will, that are of a concern. Something has happened, something has come up, and that we want to revisit a policy. We do that frequently. It's just, this
Okay,
seems
well,
to be a very,
I've only been here 3 months. I
this
haven't
seems to
seen
be a
that
very
yet, so-
quiet month. Well, if you can remember, my meeting last month lasted an hour. Yes.
Are you guys, okay. So I asked for BHC to come up, and I'm confused why it's second reading, because I kind of wanted to have a discussion and possibly change. But I have some handouts, so. Am I allowed?
Yeah.
So our policies align with the school, with the New Hampshire School Board Association, but I actually looked up. Sorry.
Did you want some, Shane?
This is the
I'll share
BHC.
with you.
Yes. So our policies 100% align up with the New Hampshire School Board Association. But I think my concern is if we get an
Oh,
email,
there's-
yours is right on the side. No, they're 2 pages.
These are the same. Oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 pages. I don't know if you want
Mine's
that.
right here, I'm sorry. I didn't look at mine.
I brought extra in case you wanted it. This one, so that one I just handed you is Dover. This one is only 1 page. It's Oyster River. Sorry, my printer just, I didn't have a speed more, so. That was Oyster River. I only have 1 copy, but feel free to, I hate it when the public doesn't have one. And then this one is Rye, I believe. So I was hoping this would be first reading, so I'm hoping that we can move it, because I don't think we
It was
have.
first reading last month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, there you go. This one's right, it doesn't say, but it is right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There you go.
2 pages?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you want these? I don't,
I have access to all the,
oh,
yeah, so I'm just waiting, when you make a recommendation for a change, I will note it and then make the change.
okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna take one of each because I want to make sure I have them too. So I know we had a discussion at the full board meeting, and I think my concern is our board policy and I pulled it up, specifically states that all official communications policies and whatever comes from the superintendent, and we're not allowed to email. And I looked at the policies of the 3 local ones, just because I know that we've gone to those a lot, and they don't have the same directive as we do. I think we just got an email from somebody that we're going to be having a discussion for instruction, and that person emailed the board asking if we had any questions. Per our policy right now, we shouldn't have responded to her. I don't think we should tie our hands as a board. I think that we know what the chain of command is, and if somebody emails us with a specific concern or question, I think we need to relate them back to the superintendent and let them know what the chain of command is. But I think that if a staff member wants to email us, especially they're also considered stakeholders, so especially with like ESSER funds or anything like that, I think we should be able to communicate with them, and I think we should know what our role is as far as what our communication is. But our policy as written does not allow us at all, and I think that we need to look at that. Like even with, I believe this is Rye, it's kind of the same thing, except their word of may be communicated. I think adding that in there so that, you know, when we get an email from a staff member and you just completely ignore them, we've had public comments where they come forward and be like, I emailed my board members and nobody responded. We're kind of tying our hands. So I think we should have some leeway. We are elected officials and we should be able to respond to them in some way, shape, or form. We also have policies that say one board member does not speak for the whole board. So we have policies that cover for us, but I think we're all elected officials that should respond to stakeholders, and I would consider an employee a stakeholder. I don't think, and again, sorry, I didn't realize that this was discussed last month and I didn't do my due homework. And I don't expect the board looking at it right now can decide to make changes. I think maybe possibly tabling it till next month so we can look at it further in detail. I just want to make sure we make the right decision when we write our policy.
I have to let committee members speak first. Is anyone back?
Seeing that you pulled the policies from the 2 school districts that I know Sarah and I work for, the second sentence of the policy for Moist River says that staff will address concerns to their principal, director, and the assistant superintendent. So the only one who speaks for the staff at Oyster River is the superintendent. If I were to go to a school board meeting and bring up the social studies budget of Oyster River High School, I would be written up by my superintendent. I would be punished for that. Because it's out of line, it does not follow this policy, and he's pretty strict about that, so.
Can I just respond to that really quick? I was talking about school boards emailing staff. That was my communication part, not staff
Right.
emailing school board members.
But I know, like, if I were to email the school board at Oyster River, they won't respond to me, and they will immediately tell the superintendent, and then I will get punished for usurping the superintendent. He's the boss, he's the district he runs the district, and he's informing the school board. So I know that we all know at my building, in my district, that we cannot email and start negotiating with the school board. That's not our job, that's not our prerogative. It is the superintendent that does that. And I would get written up for that if I did that.
And referring to the SAU 50 policy, which is what RAG follows, under board communication to staff, it says may be communicated to employees through the superintendent and or designee. So oftentimes designee may be the secretary of the superintendent, but it says there it goes through the superintendent. And I know in my district, I would never receive direct communication from a board member. It has to go through the superintendent or through the principal and then the superintendent. And that works both ways. If I want to address the board, I have to do that through the superintendent.
And they do have a contract with a union that will support and listen to them to bring things forward. If there's, I will respond to an email from anybody saying, thank you for your input, and that's all I'm ever gonna say.
So,
Because
Well,
it's
that's a
not my,
response.
it's not my job.
but that's still a response, but can I respond to Ms. Herring? I think that I agree. If a staff member is going to have a concern, they have to go up their chain of command. But at some point, we are a chain of command, and at that point, we should be able to communicate if we have clarifying questions. I mean, we are elected officials, and we have a First Amendment right to be able to speak. When you write a policy that says we cannot respond to them, even responding and saying thank you is a breach of our policy. And just the word "they" may be communicated. There are times that I completely agree that if, and again, there is a policy that says that we don't contact them first, so it would be a staff member that contacted us. I'm not talking about a staff member contacting the school board. I completely understand that there's a chain of command there. But when you look at the chain of command for a school board member, it goes staff and then assistant superintendent and then superintendent and then us. We should have the right to be able to communicate with somebody that emails us, whether it be a clarifying question. We all get the email from the person that's talking about the library that says, does anybody have any questions? Technically, per our policy, we're not allowed to ask any of those questions. So I think it's that type of a thing. When you make it so strict that you can't, I think we're tying our own hands. So I think as a board, we could say, you know, when emailed first, whatever. And again, I think this is a great discussion, but I think by saying not at all, I think there's times when we could be tying our hands, and we are.
Wait, can I say that?
Yeah.
I think there's a few pieces here that we want to keep in mind, because if we put the word may, it can be too vague, so that's where we want specificity. If I said that word right, that's a miracle. The biggest thing, because there's one of them, and I saw it, and I lost it, I think it was Dover or one of them, that there's obviously items in which we are, oh, it's right here, where we're the adjudicated by the board, so there could be a personal matter, grievance, so us asking any follow-up questions, and it's the same like for your current employees, past employees, whatever, you're dealing with something where if we're the hearing body, and if one of us is asking questions that the entire board is not privy to that would be in a hearing, then it's unfair, or at the same point, could compromise the impartialness of what our duty is. So I think that if we're going to consider the word, I wouldn't want to put the word may, I'd want to put, I don't know if it's part of our norms, is it that's more procedural, I guess? It's hard to put so much detail in policy when it's more procedural, so it's just a concern by just being vague tonight.
Can I just respond to Mr. Bolton? Ms. Kress, I just want to make sure I printed the three that I could find easily. I did look for Nashua, I couldn't find it. I did look for Manchester, I couldn't find it. I did look for other districts. These are the three that were easily accessible, and I thought they were three that were kind of different, so I thought we could maybe, that's the reason those three were pulled.
Well, now,
I don't mind waiting until everyone has spoken.
So, like Mr. Bollier said, I don't think we should be, somebody emails us with a concern. I don't think we have the right to dig into that concern, ask for more info, but I think we need to have that ability to respond back to them, explain to them, just like you said, thank you, I will make sure I bring this up at our next board meeting. I think we need to have that so they know that their concern has been acknowledged. I'm not saying we reach out to them, no, but I'm saying is, we don't dig in anymore, we have that addressed, either at the next board meeting, or have Kyle look
Because
into it, and report back to
if
us.
we do get involved, we are putting ourselves in
Correct.
jeopardy for several things,
No,
not just
I don't
being
think
a
we-
hearing body.
Yeah, but we need to, I feel we need to be able to at least address, let them know they've been heard, and it's gonna be taken to the right chain, but also explain to them, have you gone to, make sure you've gone to your principal, and if that hasn't, go to your assistant superintendent, go to the superintendent, and then if it's still not being addressed. But I think we need to be able to respond back in a certain manner.
Sarah?
Thank you. It does come down to procedures though, like, with that example, if an employee comes with a concern, it doesn't necessarily go straight to a committee or to the full board. It has to go to Kyle first, because that could be a quick 5-minute conversation and it's resolved. So I don't think that everything has to come to committee or full board if Kyle can just, if he can handle it. If he's unable to handle it, then that's, then that moves to the next level, which would be us. But we have procedures in place. So for example, the library concern, we can't solve that. None of us can individually. We can't solve that. That's not our issue to solve. But there's a process. So now we're here at committee, and it was found that, we'll discuss it here at a committee level where we're all together. So it's a procedural thing, and we do have to be careful with how we respond to things, because we could be perceived as representing the whole board, and we're not. We can't, it's very hard when it's one person responding. And as I'm looking at these policies, they seem to say that it goes through the superintendent, so that he's aware of what the concerns are, because we're not the ones fixing it. We can't fix it. He's the one that needs to fix it.
And Matt, that word may that bothered you, that is ambiguous and can mean that you can, immediately right after it, it says board members shall not. So it uses very strong language in the second sentence of that. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, that we are a policymaking. Problems that come up between levels of employer and employee have to be handled in those levels. Unless there's a grievance, and then it comes to us. That's the only time it comes to us, is if there's an impasse in agreement between the levels of our employers and employees, if you will. So I don't think we should have any ambiguous language in our communications. It's policy to not have a back and forth outside of the superintendent. And I think that serves us and the school district well. Matt?
I think one thing that's important, I think it's unique that Sarah and I are teachers, and we have some knowledge of education law. We're certainly not experts on education law, but I know the superintendent is a lot more attuned to issues than classroom teachers typically. But I think the concerns I would have with board members speaking with staff is, especially if the conversation starts steering towards contract issues, whereas a layman on a school board may not have knowledge of contract law and labor law. And if you start steering towards someplace that's totally inappropriate, and you now are subjecting to the entire board, which means the city, to unfair labor practices, especially if you start suggesting things that they should be putting into contract language, or if you're going to go down that road of arguing over a contract or an issue that is contractual or things like that, it just opens up the possibility of huge implications that, one might think is innocuous, but in fact it is literally a huge concern. I think if we start opening communication with staff, we're suddenly going to have 800 people knocking on our door, calling us, emailing us. I don't want 800 people calling to complain about this budget, that budget, what about my classroom budget, or what about this contract language, and I don't want that. I don't think any of us wants that or should want that. You can say all you want that, hey, I'm just calling as a John Q. citizen, not as a board member, but reality is you are a board member, and you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and it's just going to open up a huge can of worms. So.
No, I agree with Mr. Pappas that we shouldn't be digging into any of the issues that they're presenting to us. I don't think we should be addressing the issues, but I think we need to have, the wording needs to change where we can respond back and explain to them that, yes, thank you for your email, and you will address it at the right. And then also tell them, explain to them the chain of command and make sure that that's done as well. But I think, I just can't get an email from somebody and just not acknowledge it. I don't think that's right.
So I think what I'm hearing is you're looking for the ability to acknowledge with a reply that can just be as simple as, thank you for bringing this to my attention, I will forward this to the district for further review. Now, that could
Correct.
be at a board meeting, that could be, Kyle handles it, it could be anything. So, it's I don't know if we want to put that, what we were saying in the language, but is the ability to do an acknowledge reply, there's probably a different word for that. But that's what you're looking for,
Correct.
if I understand it. Okay.
It's not our job, it's not our job to look into the issues, that's not our job. Our job is at least to acknowledge the issue.
It would be nice if does policy say, maybe we'll find it now.
I have it on my computer if you want to look at it.
I don't look at acknowledging an email as a discussion. And if our policy
But
says,
the policy doesn't say discussion, does it? I had to read online. And
Do you want me to
I
read
never
it, Ms.
would
Grassi?
yes, read
So it says
the part.
board communication to staff, because that's kind of what we're discussing. It says all official communications, policies, and directives of staff interest and concern will be communicated to staff members through the superintendent. The superintendent will employ all such media as are appropriate to keep staff fully informed of the board's problems, concerns, or actions. So the first sentence is basically the discussion. All official communications, policies, and directives of staff interest and concerns will be communicated to staff members through the superintendent. So it says, I think the word is all that. But I will say that on the 50, on school unit 50, it does say they may communicate, which I know Mr. Broglio had a problem, but then it also says afterwards, where you said, Ms. Grassi, board members shall not initiate, which I think is important. I don't think we should be emailing staff. They're not allowed to initiate or listen to discussions of personnel-related matters, staff complaints or grievances other than in accordance with established board policies or regulations. Even if we put that stipulation in there, that would cover us so that we can respond to an email if it's a stakeholder asking a question.
Sarah.
When we did the norms and we included some of this particular policy was included, we had sample responses for what happens if staff communicates to a board. So what I've been doing, and I did this just this week, I said, thank you for reaching out. I am CCing Superintendent Pusey so that he can look into it further. So anytime I get an email from staff, I reply, thank you for, reaching out. I've included him, and I CC him so he sees it, and then it's resolved quickly because he's able to address the concern. Or the other way, if a staff member is coming to us, sometimes we'll get it through Kyle, or, it's not really often.
Currently, how the policy is written, you violate the policy by doing that.
Now, when I've included Kyle, I'm now going through the superintendent, right? So
Nope.
if I'm CCing him,
But you're
he's.
still-
Nope, you're still
You're
communicating.
still
It's against our
communicating.
policy.
So that's what I'm saying, it just needs to be rewritten
All
differently.
official communications, policies, and directives will be communicated to staff members through the superintendent. So when you reply, even if you include Kyle, you're going against our policy.
I think it's different because I'm not addressing the concern, I'm not offering any opinion or direction, I'm not saying what the next step is going to be, I'm just saying, I'm
I got
including Kyle,
Yeah,
I got it, I'm including Kyle,
Yeah.
he
But
can
that's-
take it from here.
But that's why I just think we need to rewrite that so that's put in there that we can not address the issue, but acknowledge the issue. Because right now, you're doing that, to me, you're violating the policy. Because it's just gotta be worded differently. I think we're all on the same page, it's just getting it put down how we want it.
Yes, you may.
So I do, SAU 50 has a little more language that means that it does, however, still say through the superintendent and or designee. So I guess if we're, when we want to make sure that we're to achieve on our policy, I don't know what the right language would be in order to acknowledge, you may, the board may acknowledge an email or communication from a constituent or stakeholder. However, any official communication shall be done this way. So I don't know if there's suggested language that would assist with this.
That's what I was thinking, like,
Yeah.
it could say something like, the board may acknowledge such communication, but not discuss.
So,
issue.
would you be open if I made a motion to table it to next month? Because again, I just printed these up an hour before I came here, and I think this is something that's worth us thinking. So would it be, if I made a motion to table it till next month, and so we left it here, so we didn't have to make a rush? I like to sit for 24 hours and kind of think about it, and I don't know, I didn't want you guys to feel like you had to make a decision tonight. So I would feel comfortable making a motion to table it till next month, so that we could do our own research, maybe find a different policy from another district that we might like better, come up with our own verbiage. Would anybody be opposed to that, so that we have a month to consider?
So I guess it's a procedural question, right? So is it really a table versus not move to second reading, and does it stay at its current level, Sandy? So, we can just, instead, what we can do is policy by policy, not move this one to second reading. It stays where it is, and then next month, we can then finalize after we do some homework, and maybe we can find some just language.
Yeah, and
So we wouldn't have to table is what I'm getting at.
right, and the only reason I say that is because I think there might be other districts that we might have better language. Again, I couldn't find Nashua, I couldn't find Manchester. These are the ones that were easy for me to find. There might be language in another policy that we might be able to find that's better. So I brought these as an
I'm open to having this discussion
example.
next month if that helps anybody's thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say we don't move this one for second reading, we just leave it where it is. And Ms. McDonald, does that mean it just stays there on the agenda for next month?
I just don't think you can have agenda items and just leave them floating. I think you have to have a motion to send them somewhere or do something with them. So I would say that tabling is probably the appropriate motion, I don't know, but I don't think you can take an agenda and just say, oh, we just ignored that, we didn't do anything with that item. I'm not talking about the policy now, I'm talking about the procedure of how you get it off tonight's agenda.
Hold a committee.
Can we just motion it to second reading again? Just motion it to second reading?
No, I
Just
think
leave
the
it where it's
motion,
at?
I think the motion really is re-refer to committee. That's what I think is the appropriate motion.
Does that make sense?
I'm gonna make a motion, if I may, Ms. Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overspeak. I'm gonna make a motion that we reassign policy BHC, board staff communications, back to policy for first reading for next month. And then we have 2 more times to look at it.
Would it be first reading, or would it still be second reading?
I would say we're gonna have language, and then let's do it twice.
That way it goes to the board for first.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I'll second that.
you aren't on this committee.
Oh.
So you can't.
But I like your second anyway.
I love coming to these meetings, you
I
can't do
know
anything
you
on
do.
it. Like, nobody, and then you read the minutes and nothing's in the minutes, so, great.
Okay, we have a motion, does someone want to second it? Shane wants to second that motion. So everybody in favor of moving this to next month, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Now, we still have to move BDE and BDF to
So
the board
moved.
for second reading.
So moved.
As a second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-year plan. We had a meeting of the 5-year strategic committee and picked our top three policy concerns or items, goals for 5-year. I can't, off the top of my head, remember all 3 of them.
I know I owe everybody communication of what they are for each one, but we have included 3 more rounds before they'll be an official goal list.
Right, this was just the first
Are they
shot
not
at it.
official from this committee?
We still have the community.
Not this committee, but
The 5U committee will actually send this on to public and full board before we actually decide what makes the 5-year strategic.
We also have department heads that have to
This is
give
part
input.
of, this is part of the process of each committee selecting,
again, and shouldn't we know what each committee selected?
he will tell us. He will
In
send it
August
out.
or September?
No, he will get it out.
Okay. I'll be anxious to
No,
see it.
I have an email that will be drafted through Kyle, that will be sending out later this month, after all committees have gone through round 1. As I promised to
There's
you
still 2 more
during Monday's
committees.
meeting.
There's still 2 more committees.
I
to have
anxiously
this.
await it.
I anxiously dissented.
Okay.
Ms. Grassi?
Yes.
I have to say though, looking through the policies of other school districts, I think it was interesting for me because policy BHC, because we're aligning ours with the school board, New Hampshire School Board Association, it was easy to find somebody else's policies. But looking at some of those, it had some easy search engines too. So I don't know that we have to recreate the wheel. And again, the other ones that I couldn't find, Nashua and Manchester, were very difficult to find. But it was nice following the New Hampshire School Board Association's actually policy labels because, you know, if we're looking at a policy and we want to see what the surrounding districts are, it's pretty easy to look up some of them. Again, the other ones are hard. But some of them are even in blue. They can put a keyword in. It was, again, I know you guys are looking at that, and it's kind of interesting to look at some of the other towns that were doing it. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
That is on our 5-year group of choices, yes.
There you go, you said it.
Oh, okay. I do remember that one being on there.
Yeah, it's having the same policy number and having other districts align is very user friendly.
I know we're all anxious to have all of our goals, what we're gonna do, but this year, as I said before, and we've all agreed, you know, it's not just our wish list, it's also community's wish list, another revisit, and department heads. So this list is living and breathing until we can prioritize towards the end of the year. So whenever you have a mission and vision established, which is already done, now it's what are the goals and priority lists that we want to get forward. So I know we're anxious to actually have an official list. This is living, breathing, and evolving this year for us to get planning going forward. So I know we already know that, and I just want to remind some people. That's all.
Thank you. And then we're on to public comment. We don't have public yet. A couple of lovely ladies. Do you have anything you'd like to say in policy? Thank you. I will close public comment. And we have other. Does anyone have any other?
Question.
Okay.
It's about norms. Norms doesn't fall under policy, but it's kind of
How we work.
how we work. So I just want to address that when a board member emails Kyle, they attach Sarah and Paul. I want to make sure that if we're asking Kyle a question, we shouldn't have a response back from you or Paul, correct? We should, because technically you and Paul are just one other board member. I want to make sure that if we ask Kyle a question, we need a response back from Kyle.
I agree.
So I just want to make sure that that's part of the norms. When we put all the norms together, that's how the norms got to be put.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Have we discussed norms in public?
Not yet. We will
Okay.
this, we will.
It's been mentioned twice, so I wasn't sure.
We're
So,
going to in the next work session, will be during the,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
Anything other? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.